7. From ABC News, World News Sunday, here's Forrest Sawyer.
Good evening. In the Soviet Union today, yet another sign of the growing unrest threatening to overwhelm President Mikhail Gorbachev. With just 2 hours' notice, Gorbachev went on national television to appeal for an end to the panic buying now sweeping the country. Gorbachev told consumers huge price hikes are needed if the economy is to ever improve. ABC's Rick Inderfirth has more.
The appearance by President Gorbachev caught most Soviet viewers by surprise. He appealed to Soviet citizens not to panic over proposed price increases, saying the measures were necessary to create a market economy. We need mutual trust now more than ever, he said in his 45-minute address. Otherwise, we will fail. Gorbachev's speech comes just 3 days after Prime Minister Ryzhkov unveiled the Kremlin's latest plan to revive the Soviet economy. The government's package would triple bread prices on July 1st and raise the prices of most other foods next year. That announcement touched off a wave of panic buying in several Soviet cities. The Soviet president used tonight's speech to make his case for economic reform. Sounding less like a Marxist than a marketeer, Gorbachev said, much has to be done to make the market work. Addressing the nation's workers, he warned that for those who are not willing to work, they will have a hard time. People will be laid off, he said, but he didn't say how many. Nor did he say when the national referendum on his economic reform program will be held, as promised by Soviet officials. Many observers believe that referendum will be as much about the public's confidence in Mikhail Gorbachev as it will be about the future direction of the Soviet economy. Rick Inderfirth, ABC News, Moscow.
The problems of ethnic unrest facing Gorbachev were punctuated by gunfire today in the Soviet Republic of Armenia. The Soviet news agency TASS says 6 Armenian militants were killed after they attacked a group of Soviet soldiers in the capital city of Yerevan. Thousands of troops have been sent to keep peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which fought a near civil war in January. And with the U.S.-Soviet presidential summit just 3 days away now, negotiators for the two countries are nailing down agreements and setting out the agenda for talks between the two leaders. We have 2 reports tonight, beginning with State Department correspondent David Insor.
Soviet arms negotiators spent the day at the State Department ironing out final details with U.S. officials before the summit. For the two leaders, it's pre-summit positioning time. Mikhail Gorbachev saying he could never accept a unified Germany as a member of NATO. George Bush telling Soviet television he'll try to change Gorbachev's mind.
If we're going to argue, we'll do that pleasantly. He's a tough guy. He'll listen. I've been around him enough to know that he drives his point home. Well, I can do the same thing.
With all the suggestions lately that Gorbachev might not last much longer, Secretary of State Baker was at pains to stress today it's still worth trying to cut deals.
Without regard to what you think his prospects might or might not be, while he's there, we should lock in agreements that are in the mutual interests of the United States and the Soviet Union.
But experts say with the Cold War ending, both Soviet and U.S. political clout to solve regional conflicts in the world is declining rapidly.
Notwithstanding this label superpower, we're simply too weak to force the outcomes that Moscow and Washington now basically agree on.
It is shaping up as a summit of lowered expectations. That suits the Bush administration fine, and given all his problems at home, it's probably the most that President Gorbachev can hope for. David Ensor, ABC News, the State Department.
This is Bob Zelnick. The START deal to be outlined at this week's summit will make some dramatic cuts. Current strategic nuclear forces will be cut 30%, the fast-flying ballistic weapons by nearly 50%. But that will still leave the U.S. with around 10,500 nuclear bombs and warheads, and the Soviets with about 7,500. Why so many weapons?
Well, as long as the war plan requires the destruction of upwards of 15,000 Soviet targets, there's going to be a tremendous demand to maintain very large strategic arsenals.
While the nuclear war plan is still top secret, some details have come to light over the years. It is called SIOP, for Single Integrated Operational Plan. In the event of nuclear war, more than 10,000 nuclear weapons are aimed at 4 categories of Soviet targets. First, the Soviets' own nuclear weapons. Second, other military bases there and in Eastern Europe. Third, the political and military command structure. And fourth, urban and industrial facilities. Long ago, the lines between maintaining the nuclear weapons needed to deter a war and those needed to fight one became blurred.
The best way for a force to deter is for it to be an effective, credible warfighting force.
But Crow and many others now see no plausible use for so many nuclear weapons. With Eastern Europe now pulling away from the Soviets and great power relations improving, some urge a thorough review of PSYOP with an eye toward eliminating many targets so that far sharper nuclear reductions can be negotiated. Administration sources say that one of the key items on this week's Bush-Gorbachev agenda will be a commitment to limit or eliminate nuclear missiles carrying more than a single warhead in the next START deal. START 1 may thus pave the way for even deeper cuts in nuclear weapons. Bob Zelnick, ABC News, Washington.
ABC News' full coverage of the summit begins this Wednesday, with Peter Jennings anchoring here in Washington. One story to report from Eastern Europe. The turnout was low today in Poland's first fully free election since World War II. 50,000 local government posts are at stake. Voters are expected to replace holdover communists with solidarity candidates.
World News Sunday. Brought to you by Maxwell House Coffee.
Is this decaffeinated?
Relax, it's Max.
Tastes so rich.
Relax, it's Max.
Decaffeinated?
Relax, it's Max.
It's so rich you can't believe it's decaffeinated? Relax, it's Max. Maxwell House Naturally Decaffeinated, blended with Colombian beans, because better beans do make better coffee.
Relax, it's Max.
Maxwell House Naturally Decaffeinated Coffee.
It's so good.
The day may come when all dishwashers will get your dishes sparkling clean and run quietly enough to let you talk on the phone. But isn't it nice to know Whirlpool Quiet Wash dishwashers will do it today?
My brother said, help me out. Now I've got a backache that could last all day. But I don't take aspirin or Tylenol. Today, it's Advil. Advil relieves my aching back. And it's gentler to my stomach than aspirin. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
With thousands of security officers guarding against violence, Colombians went to the polls today to elect a new president and to pass judgment on the government's war against that country's powerful drug interests. As ABC's John Quinones reports, voter response was enthusiastic, despite the danger.
It was a pilgrimage of defiance. Millions of Colombian voters braving threats of bombings and assassination for the chance to scribble their mark for democracy.
We are a little nervous about narcos, but anyway, we are here.
They were well protected. 230,000 soldiers and police officers sealed off entire neighborhoods around the polling stations. Before voting, everyone was carefully searched for weapons and explosives. The ruling party, Cesar Gaviria, is expected to win. His supporters are already celebrating victory. Other Colombians complained they were denied the opportunity to vote and cried fraud. The government says they were legally barred from voting because they failed to register. But observers say, for the most part, the elections were fair and well organized. An overwhelming number of voters were able to cast their ballots and send a strong message of defiance to the terrorists.
We can't take it anymore, and we have to do something, and they have to be captured.
Tonight they're celebrating victory, democracy over terrorism. But government officials caution Colombia has not heard the last from the drug cartels. The road to peace remains a long and difficult one. John Quinones, ABC News, Bogota, Colombia.
There was voting in Southeast Asia today, too, in Burma. Its first multi-party elections in decades. Early returns show Burma's staunchest pro-democracy opposition party taking a strong lead. But the opposition's top candidates are in jail, and the election results won't count unless Burma's military rulers say they do. Mark Litke takes a look at democracy, Burmese style.
It was the fall of 1988 when the Burmese army brutally crushed the pro-democracy movement here. Up to 3,000 demonstrators killed, thousands more imprisoned, many tortured, as a military junta took over the government and launched a reign of terror. But the military leaders also promised free and fair elections, once the security situation improved. And today, it appeared that promise was being kept, as millions of Burmese went to the polls to elect a new parliament from over 2,000 candidates and 93 political parties. The first such elections in nearly 3 decades. The first time most Burmese have ever voted. The birth of democracy in Burma? Well, hardly. Throughout this election campaign, the Burmese military has systematically eliminated or intimidated almost every possible threat to its continued rule. Most key opposition leaders have been jailed or placed under house arrest, including Aung San Suu Kyi, once touted as another Cory Aquino. There have been restrictions on the size of rallies. Speeches have been censored. Criticism of the military forbidden. While international election observers have been kept out, a small number of foreign journalists were admitted at the last minute. Security and martial law relaxed. Burma's rulers, especially top general Saw Maung, are increasingly concerned about their international isolation and the suspension of aid from the U.S. and other nations. Clearly, the generals want to improve their image. But whatever the outcome of the voting, the military has also served notice it may not relinquish power for years, and that has prompted increasing numbers of Burmese to flee. Some to refugee camps in Thailand, others to the jungles of Burma, where they've joined the ragtag armies of the ethnic minorities, fighting for their own independence. Still, despite the bleak prospects for democracy in this once prosperous, now ravaged land, many who voted today did so with dignity and even a glimmer of optimism. It may not be free and fair, said one, but it's the first time I've ever voted, and that gives me hope. Mark Litke, ABC News, Rangoon, Burma.
We'll have more news in a moment.
4, profiles in quality. Pride.
When you get pride, you get quality. That's what I said back in 81.
And today we still have that same pride.
And from what we hear, a lot of people think we're doing a pretty good job.
You can hear the quality.
You can see the quality.
You can feel the quality in the way it handles.
Thanks.
That's what happens at Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln when quality is job one.
I can't tell you how much I love these guys, but I can tell you it's 25% less than before.
Love your family 25% less with Fleischmann's Light. 25% less fat, salt, and calories than regular margarine, and 0 cholesterol. Fleischmann's Light.
From the cafes of Paris comes the inspiration for a different kind of mustard, created especially for sandwiches.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon Parisian?
But of course.
Grey Poupon Parisian mustard for sandwiches.
Life isn't a game, you know, sir. You gotta think about making a living.
Didn't you ever want to be a baseball player?
Sure, but everybody has that dream.
It's not a dream.
You know, there's a lot of competition out there.
One day it could all come down to a few inches. For those few inches, it's good to know you have Goodyear tires.
You all right?
I'm fine.
Of course, I'd be proud to have a ball player as a son.
That's why we say the best tires in the world have Goodyear written all over them.
There you are, going along, feeling on top of the world. Then out of the blue, constipation. You feel bloated, twisted. You just can't go on. And fiber, it's so slow. You want fast medicine. X-Lax, it's the right medicine. Medical experts agree. X-Lax gives your system back the natural fluids it needs to put you back on top of the world again. In hours, not days. Today's X-Lax, the right medicine.
A new congressional study is critical of the way the government approves new drugs for sale. The General Accounting Office says more than half the drugs approved by the Food and Drug Administration between 1976 and 1985 were later discovered to cause serious side effects. The report also found that many of the problem drugs had been approved relatively quickly. Federal health officials have fired back, saying the report is inaccurate and may, quote, unnecessarily alarm consumers. It's called the Spoleto Festival, and it happens every year in Charleston, South Carolina, with opera, music, dance, and theater. But this time around, the festival is much more than a world-renowned celebration. In the wake of Hurricane Hugo, it's also become a celebration of Charleston's will to survive and rebuild. Here's ABC's Al Dale.
The sound of church bells heralded a moment the people of Charleston had been waiting for, a symbol of their survival.
I hereby declare that the 14th Spoleto Festival USA has begun.
It is considered the South's most ambitious and comprehensive art series, one that annually gathers national and international acclaim.
But it's a festival that almost didn't happen. The 1990 version was nearly blown away by the most costly storm ever to hit the United States. The city of Charleston took the brunt of it.
Hurricane Hugo slammed ashore in late September, devastating much of the South Carolina coast. Damage was counted in the billions. And now, against the backdrop of Spoleto, the people here can celebrate the progress that has been made.
I really never doubted that we could do it. We had to do it, and it was just a matter of the hard work and making everything happen.
Before the Marriage of Figaro could be performed, the damaged set had to be reconstructed. Before the Martha Graham Dance Company could present its program of modern dance, the auditorium roof had to be replaced. The hard work is paying off. The tourists are coming back.
There's hardly any evidence at all of the damage that we expected to see.
You walk around and it's just better than ever.
Remnants of Hugo's destruction have even become a tourist attraction.
Now, during Hugo, we had a lot of damage down here in the market. Matter of fact, this red brick building right over here had about 5 feet of water in there.
While scars remain, the staging of the first Spoleto Festival after Hugo gives hope to a once devastated city that it will again be filled with grace and beauty. Al Dale, ABC News, Charleston.
Here's a smaller, quieter celebration. Former hostage Frank Reed returned home to Massachusetts today for an emotional reunion with his 91-year-old mother, whom he hasn't seen in 9 years. Reed says he's planning a few days of eating lobster and doing a little fishing for salmon. Wednesday, he'll return to a military hospital outside Washington where he has been undergoing medical tests.
The American